Salve, Skibberly. Today we're going to learn about a new construction, brand new in fact. I'm not going to tell you what it is or tell you how it works until we try a few examples, and you will see that you can handle this just fine. So our first example is this sentence, Omne scimus quid spectat. And then I have another option in parentheses there, spectaverit, but let's ignore that for right now. We're just focused on the omne scimus quid spectat first. So let's do a little coloring. Okay, first of all, we have a verb scimus. We have a second main verb spectat. Two verbs, that means two clauses. Let's divide our clauses right there at the quid. Then we have omnes, which is nominative. So the left half, okay, over here is going to be pretty easy. Scimus, the mus, of course, tells us that our subject is we. Omnes nominative modifies that we, so this is we all. We all know. On the right half, we have quid spectat. The quid here is going to actually be accusative, although admittedly it looks like it could be nominative too, but it's going to be accusative. So it simply means what, and then spectat with the T ending must have a subject of he or she. So this would be what she watches. So if we put the whole thing together, we would end up with we all know what she watches. Okay? Or we all know what she is watching. All right, that's easy enough. I could have done that without any introduction. Well, let's consider if instead of spectat, we had spectaverit. Now let's ignore the spectat, pretend it's not even there. All right, now it would be we all know what, and now instead of a present subjunctive, we have spectaverit. That would be an example of a perfect subjunctive. So that's going to tell me the relationship, the time relationship is time before. So we all know what she watched. Okay, that's time before, right? We all know right now what she watched in the past. All right, that makes sense. That's not too bad. Let's try another sentence. Mater rogavit ubi esses, or mater rogavit ubi fuisses. All right, let's try the esses part first. Okay, we have two main verbs. We have rogavit and esses. Two verbs means we must have two, you guessed it, clauses. Let's divide the clauses right here at the ubi. It makes sense that ubi would start a clause. On the left, over here, we have mater as a nominative, rogavit as our main verb. This is pretty easy. The mother asked. All right. On the right, we have ubi, which is an adverb, and we have esses, which is our main verb. Ubi simply means where. Esses means, look at the S here, you were. This comes from sum esse fui futurus. So, putting it all together, mother asked where you were. Note, this is an imperfect subjunctive. We know that because it has the infinitive esse right in there. Look at that infinitive esse. Plus an ending, that's an imperfect subjunctive. The time relationship between these two is the same. Mother asked where you were. What if, on the other hand, we used fuisses instead of esse? Now we're using a pluperfect subjunctive with that isse plus a personal ending. Okay, now we're using a pluperfect subjunctive. Weird. So we still have rogavit and fuisses as our main verb. We still have the same division in clauses there. We still have mater as a nominative. We still have ubi as an adverb. So now it's going to mean mother asked where you had been, because pluperfect subjunctive must show time before that main verb. So mother asked where you had been. All right. So what are these things we're looking at? These are what are called indirect questions. Why? Because they're indirectly reporting a question. What's the basic question in the first one? What did she watch? What's the basic question in the second one? Where were you? Then we are indirectly reporting them. All people know, or we all know what she watched. Mother asked where you were. So each time we're indirectly reporting a question. So how do I spot indirect questions? They will start most of the time with some sort of head verb. Okay, some sort of thinking, seeing, asking, knowing. Okay, something you do with your head. Remember, you ask questions with your head. At least that's the most effective way to do it. Next thing you will find is an interrogative word. There are a ton of possibilities here. I'm only going to give you a few to think about. Okay, this is not an exhaustive list. What do I mean by that? This doesn't exhaust all the possibilities. There are other possibilities, but some to think about. We start with quis quid. Okay, quis quid, who or what? And of course there are other forms of this, but that's an interrogative word. That word asks a question. Qui, quae, quod. Yes, that can be a relative pronoun, but it can also be an interrogative adjective, meaning which or what, like which boy or what girl. Cur, which means why, is a good possibility. Quote, which means how many. Quantus a a new vocab word for us, which means how great. Ubi, which means where. After your interrogative word, you are going to have a subjunctive verb. So we got our main parts, a head verb, some sort of interrogative word, and then a subjunctive verb. And you may have noticed all of these in the previous examples I gave. All right, so we got head verb, interrogative word, and subjunctive. So let's look at a few more examples. Number 3, dux hostium nescit qua via iter feceremus. All right, so here is our head verb, nescit. Here is our subjunctive verb, feceremus. And here is our interrogative, qua. Okay, from the qui, quae, quod. So I'm going to color the rest of this before I try to translate. Dux, of course, from dux ducus is nominative. Hostium, from the third declension hostis, hostis must be genitive. Qua via is actually going to be ablative, okay, and they agree, all right, this is an interrogative adjective agreeing with via. The word iter actually has a couple of possibilities. Could be nominative or accusative because it's neuter, but if I look at the must here, I know the subject must be we, and iter is not a we, so iter must be accusative. There we go. Where am I going to divide my clauses? I have 2 verbs. I must have 2 clauses. How about at the qua? All right, the left half. The leader of the enemy does not know. Qua via, by which road. Feceremus, we made the journey. All right, the leader of the enemy does not know by which road we made the journey. What if instead of feceremus we went with faciamus? Faciamus is a present subjunctive. How do I recognize that? The IA. We beat a liar friar. Feceremus was a perfect subjunctive. So if we go with faciamus, we need a same time relationship between this and this. The leader of the enemy does not know by which road we are making the journey. Or it could be time after. The leader of the enemy does not know by which road we will make the journey. All right, let's try one more sentence. This sentence, let's color first. We've got cupit, which is our main verb. Then we've got scire. Think about what that is. That's an example of an infinitive. Then we have another verb, vidissimus, or we're going to try viderimus as well. So we have 2 verbs, 2 main verbs. That means we must have 2 clauses. Let's divide them here. Let's color the rest of the sentence. Servus, our second declension is nominative. Agricolae, first declension, that's probably going to be a genitive here. I know because I wrote this sentence. Quantas feminas with that as, first declension, that's accusative. All right, so we're done coloring here. So, the slave of the farmer desires to know. So desiring might not necessarily be considered a head verb, but to know is certainly a head verb, and that can lead to an indirect question. The slave of the farmer desires to know quantas feminas, how great the women with dissemus, notice the must, how great the women we had seen. Okay, in English we might say something like how great were the women we had seen, but in Latin they simply say how great the women we had seen. Okay, so again, the slave of the farmer desires to know how great the women we had seen. If instead of vidissimus, which is a pluperfect subjunctive, if instead of that I used viderimus, which is an imperfect subjunctive, that would be a same-time relationship. The slave of the farmer wishes to know how great the women we saw. All right, that is the end of the lesson for today on the indirect question. When you come into class on the next day, I'm going to expect you to be able to translate some simple indirect question sentences. So be ready for that. That is all we have today. Walete.